Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is the weekly newsletter from sightedmoon.com. This one is called The Light of Your Face, published June 19th, 2020. This is the 18th newsletter for the year, and it is the 27th day of the 4th month, meaning we're coming close to the start of the next month. The 5th month should be during this next week. June 20, 2020 is the date here. Shabbat Shalom to the royal family of Jehovah. This is my 4th time at writing this article. I had it complete last Friday, but it keeps disappearing on me. I guess Jehovah wanted to do it over and over until I got it right. The Philippines Foundation. Last Sunday, June 14th, 2020, marked our first business meeting in which sightedmoon.com, along with MLTC of the Philippines, began to draw together in a legally functioning entity doing the work of Jehovah in the Philippines and throughout Asia. It is through this foundation and/or corporation that we seek to teach Torah to the nations and raise up qualified Torah teachers to send to those nations. We also seek to create and operate farms and aquaponic projects in accordance with biblical principles and understanding, i.e. the sabbatical years of rest. It is by understanding the Jubilee cycles and where we are in that cycle that shows us just how much or just how little time is left. And in understanding this, we also must understand that when the two witnesses begin their work, there will not be any rain for 3.5 years, anywhere. Part of our mandate will also be to prepare those who will listen and obey, how to have water during this time. That's very good and interesting as well. Our goal is to bless and help the Philippine people and those other nations that will turn to and begin to obey Jehovah. From this meeting, those who attended presented a brief resume of themselves so we could all get to know each other and who had what skills. Sighted Moon has grown beyond my ability to manage it effectively and to do this work at the same time. Even now, as we approach the deadline for this newsletter, the meetings we have had and the many discussions I have had with various members about this has taken up most of my time. After this meeting, I began to ask certain people to begin to help organize our efforts and streamline us into a proper foundation and/or corporation so we can function effectively in the Philippines and then branch out to all of Asia and Africa. They are currently working on having a business plan drawn up for us. I've also asked others during the week to take on certain projects and begin to work on them immediately. If I have not asked you to take on a project, we probably will be speaking to you soon. If you want to be part of this effort, please contact me. We will add you to the team. We sometimes have differences of opinion, and that is healthy. However, we are looking for mature brothers and sisters to help with the work of discipling our brethren and the Father's plan for us, each to have the testimony of the Messiah to keep Torah. So here's what we are asking. If you want to help Sighted Moon and MLTC in our mission, we can definitely use your help, but time is short and there is no time for strife among us. We are teaching the biblical timeline, the sabbatical cycles, Jubilee years, the connection between the Messiah and the Mosaic covenant. We do not need that focus divided with otherworldly news and information, no matter how true it may or may not be. So if you choose to join the team, these are the only things we will be discussing and working towards teaching until time is up. If you're called to something greater than the discipleship of all people before the return of Messiah, just tell us, and we will send you out with prayer and blessing to pursue your own calling. We love you, but we are out of time for distractions. I would like to share with you the rough outline of our 10-year plan. 2020, we must prepare now for the global events that are coming starting in 2026. We need a place to do this work. Isaiah suggests the Philippines, and to hide and collect the remnant of Israel during the next 6 years. So you can see the outline here. In 2026, the two witnesses will begin to avenge the death of the saints who have been slaughtered for the past 6 years previous to this 2026. Water and food provisions must be in place by this date. 27, drought begins to set in. Animals and crops begin to fail. Famines begin to increase. This is the start of 1.7 billion people dying. 28, we need to prepare to collect the remnant of Israel and the gold and silver. 29, the world gives up the remnant of Israel. The Philippines collect this remnant and brings them to Israel before Passover 2030. They also bring the gold and silver to make the wave sheaf offering of the remnant of Israel. Filipinos should be ready to function as high priest for the offering. 2030, the two witnesses are killed on Passover 2030. The remnant flees to Moab, where they are hidden as a shadow in the night for 3.5 years of tribulation. Okay, let me just pause it for a moment, if I may. Solar eclipse, June 21st, 2020. This Sunday, June 21, that's tomorrow, there will be a solar eclipse over much of Asia. Actually, that might be happening right now, or not now, soon, in a few hours, because they are on the other time zone. You can view all the details at this link. I also want to remind you of the two things we have been sharing now for a few weeks. Please go back to read our newsletter of just last week under the section, The World Has Gone Crazy. We shared with you the following, and I quote, that according to Cyrus, he spoke with this man named Cyrus, we're now about to enter the fourth part of this crazy cycle over the next 2 weeks. That begins June 14, actually already started, to July 4th, and it will be 75% intensity. We then went on to tell you about the tensions with China. Now looking back since our last newsletter, June 10, the stock market plunged from a high and then fell again on Friday, June 12th. It did not climb back up until Monday, June the 15th, after hitting a low. And then another drop in a matter of days. Saturday, June 13, 2020, protesters shut down a major highway in Atlanta on Saturday and burned down a Wendy's restaurant where a African-American man was shot dead by police as he tried to escape arrest. An incident likely to fuel more nationwide tensions over race and police tactics. Actually, I don't prefer the term race, but over nationality and police tactics or ethnicity. The police officer was fired and the chief of police resigned immediately. Then North Korea blows up the South Korean liaison office on Tuesday, June 16th. The media reported that the North's KCNA said the nation had cut off all communication between the two countries. North Korea had previously cut a key hotline with the South and had threatened to shut down all communication with its neighbor to the south. On June 16th, it's Tuesday, 20 Indian soldiers were killed in a confrontation with China in the Himalayas. One report I read said they were not shot, but they were all beaten to death with clubs. I read that one as well. Since 2005, we have been warning you about the year 2020 being the middle of the 70th week or 70th Jubilee cycle, according to Daniel 9, verses 24 to 27. We also warned you that it lined up with the fourth curse of Leviticus 26. The WHO declared a worldwide pandemic on the very same day we kept Passover on March 10th, 2020. I could not have planned for Passover to be moved ahead 1 month. Jehovah had the barley found ripe 1 month before we expected it this year. Jehovah changed the date for Passover. We obeyed him. We followed the cloud. Then the week before Shavuot, on May 3rd, 2020, the UN warned of biblical famines coming in 3 months' time. That is this summer. At the same time as COVID-19 raced around the world, a biblical-sized famine struck East Africa, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Eastern China. Then we had the riots, which began May 25th, 2020. All these years we were telling you Shavuot was going to be May 31, 2020. Now, Black Lives Matter is calling for defunding of the police, and government agencies are bowing down to these protesters' demands. We also had the stock markets drop from a high on the Dow. February 12th, it was high, and it fell down quite significantly on March 23rd. It was a fall of 10,000 points in just a few days. Millions were laid off work at this time, and still are. Rent and mortgages deferred for 3 months. This means they will have to begin to pay those rents come July and August. And many are still not back to work, nor will be going back, as their jobs and their companies have gone. We have told you for 15 years now that the end of America and Britain would begin in the middle of 2020. Some accuse us of being a false prophet because they are not destroyed this year already, but it has begun. It is coming. Wait for it. And it's interesting that it's the whole world that it's happening to, but if you really take a close look at those who are seeing the steepest declines, it is America and Britain. They're falling not only economically, but also in the eyes of their own citizens, in the eyes of international watchers as well. So that is significant to note. New moon of the 5th month. We are expected to see the new moon to be seen in Israel Monday night, June 22nd. We hope you all will go out and try and sight it with your families and see who can see the moon first. There is a reason for doing this. By doing this, one simple act of sighting the moon each month, you will be teaching your children and those with you why no man can know the day or the hour. And that day and hour is a feast day. It's only 2 months away from now. You can leave a comment at the end of this newsletter letting us know who saw the month of the moon, when, and where you were. And I have to add You can leave a comment at this video too, because I'm talking louder than normal. That's because where I am, it's very noisy, the ambient noise around me, so I have to speak louder than normal. Please let me know if you prefer this, or if you prefer I decrease the volume. Sim Shalom. Each day as I go through the Amidah, I read the 18th blessing. It was not until the last couple of days that it occurred to me. Sometimes I'm very slow to understand. Sim Shalom. Grant peace, goodness, blessing, grace, kindness, and compassion upon us and upon all of your people, Israel. Bless us, our Father, all of us as one, with the light of your face, for with the light of your face you gave to us, Jehovah our Elohim, the Torah of life and love, of kindness, righteousness, blessing, compassion, life, and peace. And may it be good in your eyes to bless your people, Israel, at every time and at every hour with your peace. Blessed are you, Jehovah, who blesses his people, Israel, with peace. This past week, I've written this newsletter 3 times, and 3 times it has been deleted. I got very mad at James and blamed him, but it was not him. Originally, I was going to write to you and explain the ethnicity riots now going on across the USA and the world. I had written about each of them all the way back to the 1900s. I was going to explain to you about white privilege that is now being used to shame people and what is the truth. And Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 to 20. This has come upon us because we have removed Jehovah from our lives. We have not kept the covenant of Mount Sinai. We have forsaken him. So read some more in verses 21 and 22. In case you are not aware, the USA now has over 2 million cases of COVID-19 and over 120,000 deaths as of June the 18th. Again, Leviticus 26 warns us these things were coming in verses 23 to 29. Going back to Deuteronomy, I want you to recall that before COVID-19, we had an extreme drought and biblical-sized wildfires across Australia and Western America. Deuteronomy 28, 23, and 24. You can read all of Deuteronomy 28, but here's the point I wanted to share with you. Verses 43 to 48, talking about a stranger, you alone, talking about curses, he will pursue you and overtake you, you will be destroyed, they will be a sign for you and a wonder, because you did not serve Jehovah, and you shall serve your enemies now. And he'll put on a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. We are told in Genesis chapter 18, verses 18 to 19, that just that, what it's written there. And we are told in Genesis 12, verses 2 and 3, what is said there. Jehovah chose Abraham, who was the least of all nations, to make him a blessing to all nations. That was our calling. That was the calling of all of Israel. Mark 16:15, go into the world, preach the gospel to every creature. Luke 24:47, and in his name, the name of Yeshua, repentance and forgiveness of sins will be proclaimed to all nations, beginning in Yerushalayim. Why are we to do this? Why are those of us who are of the nation of Israel, whether are grafted in or were native born, to go and teach the nations? It has nothing to do with ethnicity or supremacy or any of those things now being talked about in the nightly news. Israel, the descendants of Abraham, whether they know it or not, have been blessed above all nations, just as Jehovah promised Abraham. They did not get those blessings because of anything they did or did not do. Jehovah kept a promise that he made to Abraham. I do not call this white privilege. I do call it an awesome responsibility, one in which Israel has dropped the ball. Think for a moment about what you are told in Proverbs chapter 6, verses 20 to 23. The commandment is a lamp, and the law is a light. We are to exemplify the Torah by our living, and in so doing, be a light to the nations about this way of life. Matthew 5, verses 13 to 16. The Israelite nations have lost their savor and are in the process of being thrown out. They've lost their savor as salt. Both the USA and the state of Israel have claimed to be that light to the nations, but they are not being a light. In his writings and speeches, Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion emphasized his vision of the state of Israel as a moral and social beacon to the whole world. And by that, in his view, it shall implement the vision of the prophets. The selection of the menorah as the emblem of Israel was derived from the image of the state of Israel as a light unto the nations. Israel's vision of light unto the nations was reflected in the words of the current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in his address at the 2010 Herzliya conference. You are dealing with our people's fate because it is clear today that the fate of the Jewish people is the fate of the Jewish state. There is no demographic or practical existence for the Jewish people without a Jewish state. This doesn't mean that the Jewish state does not face tremendous challenges, but our existence, our future, is here. The greatest change that came with the establishment of the Jewish state was that Jews became more than just a collection of individuals, communities, and fragments of communities. They became a sovereign collective in their own territory. Our ability as a collective to determine our own destiny is what grants us the tools to shape our future, no longer as a ruled people, defeated and persecuted, but as a proud people with a magnificent country and one which always aspires to serve as light unto the nations. Netanyahu, in his 2017 UN speech, quoted Isaiah again, that the state of Israel is a light unto the nations, bringing salvation to the ends of the earth. In February 2018, President Trump referred to America as a light to all nations at the Christian National Prayer Breakfast. Then as I searched this some more, as I searched for more information about being a light to the nations, I was led to Isaiah 49. Now pay attention to what is being said in the following quotes from Isaiah. The servant is not Yehoshua, but it is Israel. Israel is a servant of Jehovah. This is chapter 42, verses 1 to 4. The coast shall wait for his law, is highlighted there and bolded. I was not looking for the coast, which is a reference to the Philippines, which are waiting for his laws as I write. Verse 5 and 6 says here, give you for a covenant of the people, for a light of the nations. Israel has failed to do this. I was reading this as if Israel was going to be that nation, to be given as a covenant of the people for a light of the nations. But it is not Israel that waits for the Torah. It is the coasts that are waiting for the Torah. Verses 7 to 9. I assume I was reading this incorrectly and kept looking for scriptures with light to the nations in them. Okay, I just looked it up, that verse. This is what it says right there. You can read that for yourself. Okay, so continuing on, I was reading this as if Israel is going to be that nation, to be given as a covenant of the people for a light of the nations. But it is not Israel that waits for the Torah. It is the coasts that are waiting for the Torah. I assume I was reading this incorrectly and kept looking for scriptures with light to the nations in them. But the very next verse I see when I read the whole section is blowing me away. Jehovah is talking to the coastlands and telling them to pay attention. There's Isaiah 49, verses 1 to 3. And so it says here, listen to me, you islands, and attend to me, you Gentiles. So it does say islands. But you know what? That could actually also be England as well, because England, UK is made up of a bunch of islands as well. So just to throw that out there, because they are the descendants of Israel that went to the UK. They went to Scotland. They went to Ireland. They went to England. Those are islands too, just to add that into the mix. Jehovah is talking to the coastlands. I assume I was reading this incorrectly. Okay, telling them to pay attention. Here again, Jehovah is telling us Israel is his servant, but they have not taken the Torah to all the nations. In fact, in these last days, they have done away with the covenant. In a lot of ways, that's true. Verses 4 to 7 of Isaiah 49. Who is Jehovah talking to here? He is talking to that person who is going to gather the tribes of Israel and those preserved. And this person will be a light to the nations at the same time. The capital H in him whom man despises, and him whom the nations hate, the servant of rulers. There are no capitals in Hebrew. This is a translator's interpretation. Jehovah is not a servant. Yehoshua is not a servant. So again, who is this talking about? Who is going to be despised and hated in these last days? Revelation 11, verses 3 to 10. Are you listening, Filipinos, to what Jehovah is saying? You have a major role in these last days. Are you listening? Are you double checking what I'm showing you here? And I just did. And it said what it said, but it also said in 49, you islands. It said islands. That can be many places, but we're thinking on Philippines at this context. Then I went to the next verse about being a light to the nations. Again, look at what I found. Isaiah 51, verses 1 to 16. And I'm going to look at that myself. Give me a moment. So these are the verses in question. Hear me, my people. That's what it says there. So that's what it says in Septuagint. So I'm going to skip over this section here. Look what I found. I read that. Isaiah is telling us the coastlands will wait upon Jehovah. It does say islands. It does say that. And again, the law and his judgments will be the light to the peoples or a light to the nations. The future glory of Israel, Isaiah 60, verses 1 to 6. So I'll look that up myself. It says here in verse 6, the camels of Midian and Gaifa shall cover you, all from Sheba shall come bearing gold, and shall bring frankincense. They shall publish Yehoshua. That's what that means. Salvation of the Lord is Yehoshua. So the Queen of Sheba, as we have explained in our other teachings on the Philippines, is in Hebrew. The shin, and the beit could easily be pronounced Sabu. Verse 7, it says Kedar. The flocks of Kedar. Yeah, it says that. Flocks of Kedar. The word Kedar deserves to be looked up. Kedar means a son of Ishmael. Dusky, the skin of the the tent. The Philippine people have dusky or ashy colored skin. Actually, there's all types of skin colors, but there are some that do have that, especially the mountain people. Verse 9, surely the coastlands shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first to bring your sons from far. Let me read that in the Septuagint. The isles have waited for me. Yes, they have. The ships of Tarshish among the first. It says that exactly in the Septuagint as well. Backs up that. There's silver and gold with them to their name, and that for the sake of your holy name of Jehovah, because the Holy One of Israel is glorified. Here again, as we look for the light of the nations, I have found it in relationship with the people of the Philippines, and I've done my research on this too. And Tarshish is a place that's 3 years' journey by ship from Jerusalem. The only place that's that far that fits all these conditions of having gold and various resources that they brought back in that abundance is the Philippines only. They are Tarshish. I am very much agreed with this point. The coastland who waits for his Torah is the Philippines. The same place where the ships of Tarshish once came with the queen of Cebu or Sheba. I was not looking for this nor expected it. Isaiah 60 verses 10 to 22. Israel did not bring the Torah to the nations. They did not teach them the laws of Jehovah. They did not become that light to the nations that they claimed they were. Now Jehovah is taking away his protection and his blessings that he gave them, and this is happening right before our very eyes. Jeremiah chapter 7 verses 22 to 29 and chapter 6 verses 19 or 16 to 20. Let me close with one more verse from Isaiah. Jehovah is going to take those from the coastlands and is going to use them to bring back Israel. And when he does this, he will then take those from the coastlands and make them a priest and Levitical priest. Have you heard of anyone having this honor? Isaiah 66, verses 18 to 22. And I know their works and their imagination, and I'm going to gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory, and I will leave a sign upon them, and I will send forth them that have escaped of them to the nations, to Tarshish and Phud and Lud and Mosach, and to Tubal and to Greece, and to the isles afar off, to those who have not heard my name, nor seen my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. And I would also argue that these isles afar off could include England, because back in those times, in ancient times, the islands, they were also known as the islands of the United Kingdom as we know them today. They shall bring your brethren out of all nations for a gift to Jehovah with horses and chariots and litters drawn by mules and with awnings to the holy city, Jerusalem, said Jehovah, as though the children of Israel should bring their sacrifices to me with psalms into the house of Jehovah, and I will take of them priests and Levites, says Jehovah. So, brethren, out of all nations, are not just one nationality, but many different ones. For as the new heaven and the new earth which I make remain before me, says Jehovah, so shall your seed and your name continue. So I want to just mention that, my bloodline, my ethnicity, my nationality, so to speak, based on the biblical definition of that word, not the worldly definition, is I'm Filipino. Both my parents are, so there's no reason for me to disagree. I should be all in favor of this. But if I'm going to be very honest, this could mean the Philippines. It could. But this could also mean the Isles, the British Isles as well. It's important to keep an open mind, because when we do so, which shows our willingness, our ability to learn and not be stubborn. So I do leave that open for interpretation, and it's important we have difference of opinions, but we respect those differences. Conclusions. We started off with our daily prayer, Sim Shalom. With the light of his face, he gave us the Torah, Proverbs 6, verses 20 to 23. Let me just look that up. So Proverbs 6, 20 to 23. My son, keep the laws of your father and reject not the ordinances of your mother, but bind them upon your soul continually and hang them as a chain about your neck. Whensoever you walk, lead this along and let it be with you, that it may talk with you when you wake. So that's 23, okay. For the commandment of the law is a lamp and a light, a way of life. Wow. Reproof also and correction. And Timothy says the same thing, a similar wording. The commandments and the Torah are light. And Isaiah 60, verse 2 and 3. Let's look that up as we close. Isaiah 60, verses 2 and 3. Behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and there shall be gross darkness on the nations. But Jehovah shall appear upon you, and his glory shall be seen upon you. And kings shall walk in your light, and nations in your brightness. Wow, that's beautiful. When we keep the Torah, when we obey and teach others to obey the commandments, they make us shine, and they reflect the glory of Jehovah through us. I was wanting to teach you about the riots and why Israel was being destroyed. Instead, Jehovah led me to teach you about the Philippines in these last days once again. At the same time as we are working hard to create a foundation and corporation to handle the legal duties involved going forward, we need your help. We need your skills. You have proven the Jubilee cycles to be correct, and that we are now in the 120th one. You have proven the 70 weeks of Daniel to be talking about 70 Jubilee cycles from the time of Moses being told by Jehovah to go and get his people. And you know that the middle of this 70th Jubilee cycle is this year, 2020. You have seen this pandemic being declared on the Passover we celebrated. You have seen the UN warn of biblical famines just before Shavuot. And on May 31st, you have seen what could be the start of war in America. You have also seen biblical-sized locusts spread across East Africa, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, China. So it's a big locust plague locust swarm. You have seen the most powerful economy in the world shattered in a matter of days by COVID. It is going to take years to recover from this Great Depression, probably decades. The only thing you have not yet seen is the Middle East attack Europe and Europe to invade and destroy the Middle East and then America. Though it lingers, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. War is definitely coming. I do believe that. Let's look at the comments here. Just gonna scan over them. So the first comment mentioned the significance of the number 300, and it is a very significant number in Scripture. 300 pieces of silver, 300 Gideon, the 300 of Gideon. That number comes up quite a bit in Scripture. 300 days, or 2,300 days. 305 and 30 days. Why was it the ointment not sold for 300 pence given to the poor? So that's all for the comments for this time being. Let me just continue on. So it sounds like they are recruiting people who want to go to the Philippines and help in a meeting Sunday, June 21. It's tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. And you can find a way to help out, find a place there. Okay, so that's all for this newsletter. Thank you for listening. I hope it's been helpful for you. I did go over the highlights, but I read it more thoroughly than the previous one I went over. This is a little bit shorter than the last one as well. And I thank Joseph and sightedmoon.com for the newsletters, for the Zoom meeting earlier, and just thank Jehovah for all of this, being able to know his truth and to live it. It's such a honor and a privilege, especially in this time, to live in this specific period of time where we see Scripture being fulfilled before our eyes, and it's just getting started. So thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Jehovah bless you, and may he make your way prosperous. Till next time, I'll be covering the newsletters until they pretty much, I guess, until they stop being written, or until it's no longer possible. So thank you again, and until next time.